Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Growth Shift. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm excited to welcome Sealy Hambright, Scientific Director and Co-founder for Bay State Longevity. Thank you for joining me today. We'll be kicking off today by learning about Sealy's background and then explore the biggest trends, successes, and challenges he's seeing in the market. Sealy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what Bay State does?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a scientist by training. I have a PhD in neurobiology. So I went through the typical route of graduate school and a postdoc fellowship, thinking I might stay in academia and do research for a living. That's like you typically would do. In that capacity, we do research at that level in a role we call a principal investigator. So you write grants, you write manuscripts, you disseminate what you're finding. Very esoteric, but moving the needle, if you will, and evolving, science and medicine. And I loved that. But what I was finding in my training, and certainly as an independent investigator, was that we were finding some interesting things in the lab. We were creating some new tools, but the pathway to that getting in front of a patient or a client or just an individual as a whole was a very tedious, long pathway that didn't need to really exist sometimes. For example, I'll be really brief, but we were using at times very common over-the-counter therapeutics or compounds or even vitamins in rat models or mouse models. And we were seeing these really big effects with just supplementing certain elements that you can find at your drugstore. And it's like, why isn't this knowledge so known by the general public, especially in the whole chaotic milieu that you see if you go through TikTok or social media? There's a lot of information out there. So I really started to shift towards a goal to democratize some of these things, right? To get the word out, to curate or personalize certain therapies that might work for someone. I care about neurobiology and aging at this time. And that's kind of what I did. And so I met some like-minded people here in Aspen. My two partners are Jonathan Trivis and Chrissy O'Brien, and they had this vision that I shared to have a longevity center, a wellness studio where we could offer some of these therapies. And I also, as a scientist, wanted to couple that with testing. That's a big part of our paradigm, right? Like a clinical trial where we would have baseline testing and follow-up testing. We could track people programmatically. And so we could have interventions, if you will, which would be like different compounds or therapeutics, which we can talk about, or even holistic interventions like the sauna and the cold plunge, at certain frequencies and chronicities. And then we pair that with some measurements and some bio data to make sure this stuff's working. And so we really shared that ethos, my partners and I, and we launched here a couple of years ago. And we've learned a lot of lessons. I'm sure we'll talk about some, but it's been an awesome journey. And since that time, I've done other things in the entrepreneurial space and in a somewhat similar sphere. Again, offering therapies through a digital health platform or in clinic space, but it's been great. And so I think that programmatic, personalized, curated approach or getting these blood biomarkers and other kind of testing done at baseline with the follow-up as a general paradigm, I think is pretty transformational for the general person that walks in. And we've been really focusing on that. We're hoping to grow more, but it's been fun so far.
Fantastic. So, what was the moment that you realized that this problem was worth solving when you had your first client or you had people that were receptive to the services that you were offering?
I mean, that was honestly when I was at an orthopedics clinic as a traditional independent investigator in the science field, if you will. That's when it really happened. It was interesting. I mean, you might think this is boring, but in short, I developed a blood testing platform, and what we could do is we can enroll participants in a clinical study to validate the platform, right? So we had a clinical trial, there, a small clinical study, and in short, that blood platform just measured cells we call senescent cells. These are cells that are associated with aging, which we could talk about if you want. But we were trying to find ways to mitigate the number of those cells while simultaneously improving our toolkit to detect those cells so we can track if they go up or down, right? And when we enrolled these participants, which are just study subjects from the community, and this was in Vail, Colorado, a very active community, they would meet with me to go over their results, which is for the study. But I was meeting with them to get data, and all they were talking about every time was like, how do I get this stuff down? I see that this is a result. I want to make it go lower. How can my wife enroll in this and get tested and track it? And there was such an appeal to the general community to use these tools. And we were doing it for research. So I was oftentimes having to say, well, no, this is a research result. This is not clinically validated. I'm glad that you really like it. And they were trying to bring all their friends in and family to enroll just to get more data for themselves because it was a really easy test. It was a small amount of blood. We could test them, and they had a figure and a report and a metric in which they could track. And I was like, wow, people really care about two things. One is trackable metrics, and more importantly, trackable metrics from trusted expertise or trusted individuals. They really wanted to talk to the doctor or the PhD here, and they really enjoyed that and appreciated that concierge kind of like care, if you will. This is a research setting. I was really surprised by this. I was always having to say, this is just research. So to be honest, to answer your question, that was really when I realized we can democratize some of these things. There's no real hurdles to some of these tests. There's no real hurdles to building out curated infusion protocols. They're all compliant. It's obviously ethical. And that was probably an impetus for thinking about these entrepreneurial ambitions and doing this more commercially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what kinds of things were you looking for in the blood tests? Things that, obviously a general practitioner isn't looking for necessarily.
Yeah, yeah. So in the research setting, we were looking for definitely new things. So I'll answer your question in two parts. There's a lot of blood biomarkers that are available right now that probably should be part of a more standardized panel. The panels that are commonly used by a primary care physician are limited in many ways, especially for general wellness. And this really is a result of, not to get off on a diatribe about Western medicine, but it's really as a result of trying to fix a pathology or fix a symptom or fix a condition. A lot of medicine is directed towards that. They want to fix sick, not prevent sick. This is not a controversial topic or statement. But so there's that element, but we were also looking at new markers that were associated with aging specific profiles within the blood. And mainly this was senescent cells. So we could look at the cells in the blood that had a certain, what we call a phenotype that exhibited senescence, which is just an old cell. So these are dysfunctional cells. And we could also look at not only the cells that are floating around in your blood that exhibit this phenotype, but we could look at soluble factors or proteins that are associated with that are also in the blood, which are like blood biomarkers. And so those are usually products of what that bad cell we're talking about spits out. Because what makes that cell bad is it secretes these things at a high level. And so we could pair that with increased levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines, for example, along with increased levels or increased signatures of these senescent cells. So it worked great. It was very correlative. And in an orthopedic clinic as well, we cared about what we call outcomes, which is what makes people do better after a treatment or a therapy. And so we also found that people that had high levels of these signatures or senescent cells or senescent cell secreted factors oftentimes didn't have as good of outcomes clinically. They wouldn't heal as quick, or their pain wasn't reduced as much or something like that. And so, yeah. And so like I've obviously translated some of that here at Bay State, where we look at various different biomarkers, honestly, often associated with inflammation or drivers of inflammation or cellular signals that bring in cells that promote inflammation. And that's a very regulated process that becomes dysregulated with aging. And so you can measure multiple markers, and that gives you a much better idea of kind of their baseline inflammatory state.
Okay. And then when you get that information, do you have solutions to help them?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
okay. And
That's
so
the,
what would
and
those be? Those would be,
yeah, exactly. There's tons. And that was really the commercial element, right? Because when you're in a research setting, you're just getting data. You're answering certain questions. You're testing certain hypotheses. And so I was just more motivated to see, not only can we detect this stuff, but how do we get that stuff down? And so here at Bay State, for example, we have two different modalities, I would say, to do that. We have the holistic kind of interventions, the sauna and cold plunge. I think it's pretty common information now that doing contrast therapy, which is coupling sauna and the cold plunge, can significantly reduce inflammation, can raise levels of neurotransmitters for alertness, etc. And that works very well. So we can look at like CRP or interleukins or a TGF beta, and we can see with the chronicity of just cold plunging and some sauna that we can see reductions in those levels. Because with sauna, you're activating these kind of heat shock proteins. You're also activating these in cold plunge too. But when you do the contrast back and forth, that works really well in a generally well state. I mean, if you have type 2 diabetes that's very severe, that's a different scenario. So I'm speaking in generalizations. But we also have infusion therapies and vitamin supplementation, which is fairly basic and straightforward. Well, we can have a cocktail of various different vitamin supplements that can also help normalize levels that we might see from the blood work. A common one is some people have issues with methylation, which is really a hot topic right now. And so they're not methylating properly. So we can supplement in an infusion, like a methylated B12, for example, or a methylated vitamin complex. And that alone is restoring cellular function and cellular reserve and really cellular homeostasis. And so again, coupling the blood work with the intervention, whether it's kind of pharmacological through an infusion or a mineral supplement or a holistic therapy like a sauna and a cold plunge, that works great. And we also have HBOT, which helps tremendously as well, just to increase blood flow and allow your body to naturally deliver the things it needs, especially with increased oxygen to deep tissues. And that works fantastic as well. Those are general, so we can talk about specifics, but those are we see that a lot. We target inflammation a lot as much as we can. Because in the aging world, that is the ideological driver in many ways. Now, where the inflammation's coming from is a whole different conversation, but really inflammation is the driver of biological aging. We call it inflammaging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that we know how your journey began and have an understanding of Bay State longevity, let's zoom out and kind of look at the bigger landscape that you're building in. What major trends are shaping your space?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a very hot topic right now. Everyone, these quote unquote longevity centers are popping up everywhere. And there's good actors and bad actors. We'd like to think we're good actors, obviously, because we couple biodata collection with any kind of recommendations. I think the trends, we're very unique in Aspen because it's a resort town. It's very transient. So there's like unique things we have to do with that kind of population and client demographic, which we could talk about. But I think the biggest trend conceptually, and there's specific like therapeutic trends I'll mention, but the conceptual trend I think is a big shift towards the concierge-like care or a virtual health kind of care. Can we do this offline or online, but offsite? Can I get stuff shipped to my house, etc.? And there's a lot of competitors doing that. So I think clients are more aware that they can do a lot of at-home testing, quite frankly, and certainly a lot of at-home assessments and at-home kind of coaching or virtual kind of care. So a lot of our clients, again, we're transient. So we have transient clients. So touching base with them and keeping in touch with them is we kind of have to have some virtual tools. But I think I'm noticing it's almost more expected now. Like I'll come in, I'll give the blood, sure, but can you send me supplement recommendations or a package of supplements, or can you send me a test to do this for methylation status, etc. at home, and then have the tools and the framework in which to manage that medicine, if you will, but also engage with them and coach them through certain elements. So big shift towards virtual tools to manage and perform some of these things. That's a big one. And then there's a lot of really popular items now that are in this longevity space. Everyone's in here looking for NAD and glutathione, which we can talk about if you want. It's funny because we want to
What is NAD?
Yeah. NAD is it's just a coenzyme used by cells. It's such a hot topic right now, and mildly controversial. But NAD is a very, very important coenzyme that's used for a variety of processes inside cells, and it's a precursor to many different things. But it's approximately related to DNA repair, DNA health, energetics of the cell, the mitochondrial function, and a variety of other important metabolic processes. I think NADs become popular, and for good reason, because what we found in the field of geroscience is that with aging, we see a significant decrease in the reserves of NAD. It's almost like a currency in some ways. We need a good amount of that inside the cells to do a lot of cellular activities and cellular things. We know with aging that decreases through various different studies. We also know if you supplement NAD, you can mitigate symptomology or the effects of aging at the cellular and organismal level. So what does that mean? We can do things in a dish, in a cell. We could supplement NAD. The cells behave better. The DNA is more stable. Metabolically, they're more stable or homeostatic. And so there's a lot of work behind NAD, and importantly, the precursors to NAD. NR and NMN are two of these examples. And so the science really supports this. But a lot of the work preclinically has been in cells and in different animal models. But there's also some good human studies too. But it's just become very, very popular. And so people will come in just wanting the NAD drip, but there's caveats there. We want to provide these precursors as well that are building blocks to make more NAD. It's a good way to think about it. You also need some help getting the NAD inside your cells once you do an IV. These precursors can help with that. So we want to keep up with the trends, if you will, especially if they're evidence-based. I would say NAD is certainly a mechanism to target for aging. But what we do is keep up with the trend, but make sure we provide the precursors in this case, or the supplemental support to increase the efficacy of what they're doing. And it's oftentimes really just needed for an older individual, I would say. You're really starting to see decreased levels. Everyone's different, but let's just say after 40, you'll see that. So if you have the 25-year-old kid that's walking in that wants to go ski better, it's like, obviously, this is probably not going to promote your ski ability, you know? So yeah, so that's a big one. And glutathione's the same way. It's a very popular antioxidant. I have a PhD in glutathione, actually, interestingly enough, basically. That works, but there's precursors to that too. So we need to make sure to provide the one's called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, but we want to make sure to provide those as well. So again, like you have trends in the therapeutics that we want to, we're for profit. So we want to make sure we have the trendy things, but we want to make sure it's evidence-based. As a big, I would say, level of education for the client. So I'll talk to them if need be, or our nurses are very well equipped to talk to them. We want to make sure and give them the best experience with that intervention. So again, providing the precursors, providing a dosing schedule, do it more than once, et cetera. So that programmatic kind of approach. But
Sure.
yeah, a lot of virtual health, and then keeping up with the hot trends. All the methylation stuff's hot too right now, right? How do I get tested for methylation? What is it? No one even knows what it means. So the education element is a big push for us, and our staff, and obviously me, are well informed on these topics, and that helps a lot.
Sure. Who is your ideal client? Is it that somebody with advanced age? Is it somebody younger? Who's your ideal client?
Well, I think, it's funny. We're a longevity center. So you'd
Right.
think it'd be the older individual. And oftentimes to be honest with you, you can really move the needle more with the older individual, because these interventions, you'll see more increases in the blood work, or decreases, or whatever you're looking for. You'll see changes or deltas more easily because they're just easier to target. If someone's deficient in something, it's a lot easier to rectify that. And so you can provide good feedback for them. So they're the older patients or older clients are just better responders, if you will, because if you're young and healthy, you might not need so much. But we take all kinds, and I think our especially our holistic interventions here. Again, the lymphatic massage, HBOT, and sauna plunge. From a performance perspective and a recovery perspective, literally the muscle tissue itself, these are really great for a young athlete or a young active person. But to answer your question more directly, here, especially, the best client is not really an age demographic either way. It's someone that can stay on a program and is willing to put in, the 6 months, or they're a local and they have a membership and they're doing these things more chronically. And then they're getting that feedback where I feel better. I'm performing better. Because everyone has, if you're active, you all have your internal metrics of like, I'm skiing this run at this rate or this ability level. I'm this tired when I get done, and I feel less tired. These are just really generic, symptom responses, or kind of subject, you know, assignments to how you feel. But people really respond to that. If they just feel better, they like it. And if you do these things more often, especially like HBOT or sauna plunge, you'll feel a lot better. So the best client for us that demonstrates the, if you will, the efficacy of kind of our programs and our approach is someone that's here more often, that can come in and more routinely do this. And from a business perspective, that could obviously be a hurdle, right? Because they might come in once or twice and then leave, and you really want them to have a good response, a good experience, get that biological feedback, that physiological feedback where you're feeling good. And so those kinds of clients, I mean, the virtual health platform would help with that, to stay in touch. But navigating that's been difficult for us, because it's like we really have a setup here that's best if you can be kind of on site a
Sure.
good amount.
Sure. I was going to ask you that. So you've mentioned Aspen a couple times. It's a
Yeah.
transient resort
Yeah.
town. How do people find you? Do they seek you out, or do they find you because they are in Aspen and they are struggling after a day of skiing?
We have a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll take it,
Right.
People are here oftentimes on vacation. They'll have a long night, or a long ski day and long night, enjoying themselves. And so an IV in that scenario the next morning obviously is very replenishing. But they'll find us obviously. I think most of our clients that don't already know about us because they're local. I would say find us from Google and they'll type in like IV. We also have partnered with some of the concierge departments or concierge teams at different hotels here, and so they can make their clients or their guests aware of these offerings. And so we'll do at home visits or at hotel room visits as well. That happens a lot. So they'll find out through the concierge, and most of it's probably just Googling it. So SEO is very important. We've been working on that a lot. But yeah, and we do see a lot of. I had a long night, had a good time in Aspen last night. Can I get an IV? And then the altitude thing too. We get a lot of that as well. And so people will be Googling, how do I get an IV? Make me feel better. And so we have IVs that can help with that.
Is the IV your flagship service?
The margins are great there, let's be honest. And so we do definitely promote those. Try to keep, this is not a science either, but we try to keep, we have IV, I mean, you have IV options, but you also want to leave in some ability for the nurses to plug and play with kind of personalized options based on the symptomology or what the patient might want, like a spike of glutathione or this NAD we were talking about, or Toradol, which you can just, it just makes you feel better. Pain reliever. We also have anti-nausea, like Zofran, etc. Those are really popular. So yeah, IVs are, we probably, in terms of like numbers and use, our sauna plunge rooms are filled oftentimes, and it's very comparable to the IVs that we would see in terms of like what clients want when they come in the door. The margins are very nice on the IVs, so that we probably make a little more money there. But I think our sauna plunge rooms are nice because it's a private room, and people like that, especially here. They want privacy. There's VIPs that come in here too, as you can imagine. So having that private room with a shower and the plunge and the infrared sauna is really powerful. So yeah, I would say that the sauna plunge and the IVs are the big drivers. We also do injectables like intramuscular injections of vitamins, etc. We'll soon be offering different peptides to couple with these therapies, and that's pretty popular for the in and out customer that just wants a quick jolt.
Sure. How many of your customers, what percentage of your customers do you keep after their initial, I guess, appointment? But, I understand the virtual medicine platform is the goal. What percentage
Yeah.
would you say actually stay on with you?
It's a great question. We always think about that. There's the acquisition cost, obviously, of the customer, and then there's like the retention itself. The transient nature plays a big role in this. So we'll have very happy customers that get on a plane and leave. So they would stay or they wouldn't be a member, but they're not here. So I would say most of our locals that come here, if they're not using a gift card, which is great, but that's the gift card, right? They will oftentimes, I mean, don't quote me, but it's probably like a 70% retention of if people are local, they're wanting to try this out with the potential and intent to add this to their gym membership as well and like do both. That retention is good. So our client experience, I'm very happy with. I think we've done a really good job at retaining clients, especially the ones that are local that want to come back in and use it more often. And even our transient customers, they'll come back because they're here a lot, right? For the prime
Right.
times.
They're
And
repeat
they're
skiers, right? They
repeats.
continue to go to Aspen either
Exactly.
multiple times per year or every year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's we're probably around in those scenarios or settings, 70 to 80% that want to stay on in that program, which is great. I think and I think that's all based on client experience, right? So I think we've done a good job with that, which we could talk about, but it's mainly just kind of a VIP kind of experience. It's very concierge. I think our look and feel is very inviting. There's other infusion centers that I won't name names, but they're kind of transactional. They're kind of plug and play, no pun intended. You come in, you get it, you get out. There's a space for that. I mean, some people are just get me in there, let me out. But I would say it's kind of clinical looking, maybe kind of sterile. Our environment and our look, I think, is it's very appealing. We're really proud of that, and we get a lot of positive feedback on that from clients too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about successes and what's working well, what's a recent win or milestone that you're especially proud of?
I mean, another way. The biggest win of late has been our personnel, like our employees, getting that squared away.
That is
Again,
a huge win.
there's the transient nature of Aspen, right? There's a
Yeah.
transient nature of employees too. And so we have seasonal employees. We have a lot of foreign people that will come here from like South Africa or Argentina. And they're in a special class of employment that like they'll come here. There's like a pipeline, which is great. And they're fantastic. That always happens. So we've got that pipeline mapped out because there's all the things you have to do on the payroll side of things and account to get that squared away. The back office element of that we've got nailed down. That was a big win. I know again it's kind of boring, but like that was a big win. But even our main core group, we have two fantastic nurses. It took us a while to get a good nurse. It's expensive to live here. It's a small town. I guess so the biggest boom for us in terms of consistency, client satisfaction, client experience, and even revenue has honestly been nailing down our core front desk. We have like a front desk manager. She's great. And we have two fantastic nurses. One's like a nurse director that kind of does all the scheduling, and one's works with him, and she's fantastic. That has been the biggest win, honestly. And so now you can imagine foundationally, once you have that, and you can trust that to work really well, where you're not having upset clients because there was a missed stick or something. Everyone's trained up. They're well equipped. They can speak to what we're doing and what our mission is. They can sell like these programs we have, the
Yeah.
complementary therapies, the complementary supplements that we sell that kind of pair well with these infusion therapies, the education element. Having that personnel that's bought in and is here, we finally got that set up. That took a year and a half.
I
That's been
bet.
the
I mean, you
biggest thing,
mentioned the
honestly.
VIP and the concierge service as well, so they're
Yes.
all on track with that mentality too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's retail medicine, and so
right.
there's and we're for profit, so we want to mention the other things we have that are evidence based that might couple well with what you're doing, and that's really an education thing, and really kind of a little passion for it too. Like our nurses really care about these things. They use these things. They can speak to these things. Like here's what I'm getting from my wearable when I take this deep sleep supplement. It helped me. I pair that with NAD 3 times a week at this dose. That's the biggest. If I'm being honest, that's our biggest game changer more recently. And so for this prime winter season, our staff is perfect. So we will certainly have a more revenue. We're already seeing that just from that alone. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, with those wins in mind, let's kind of flip over to the other side of the journey, the tougher stuff. Like, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced recently?
Yeah. Well, it's the personnel thing we just mentioned. That was the thing historically. And that wasn't there wasn't like there was bad apples there. It was just like, again, expensive town, small town, find the right people. But getting the people in the door factor, that's a big one. When they get here, they love it. We know that. We're happy with that. We're doing good there, I feel like. It's like, how are we getting them here? And oftentimes people don't know all the services we have. So when you have a wellness center like that, like this, that has, and we're learning how to do this better and more scientifically, if you will. But in the beginning, we thought we're offering all these great things from advanced blood work to simple blood work to simple IVs to more advanced or complicated IVs, programmatic things with coaching and nutrition and dietary recommendations. We have a litany of tests I won't even talk about that we offer, from genetic tests to epigenetic tests to telomere testing. It's like we're really proud of that. No one knows about these things. The biggest issue that we're facing, even currently, is how do we inform the general public that's not going to Google search a methylation test in Aspen per se, but how
Right.
do we, when they walk in the door or if they're searching for things or on our website, how do they immediately know this is what you're going to experience? This is what we offer, and here's how it could help you. And we can ship it to you and make it easy if need be. I wouldn't say we're struggling with that, but that is a constant focus. And so one thing we're doing right now, which is kind of fun, to be honest, is we're focusing locally. So we're going to a lot of local events or activation events and having a presence. And it's kind of a marketing campaign, if you will. But one thing that's nice, we're locals here in Aspen. We know about a lot of the events. We're usually friends with some of the organizers of these events. And so we want to have a presence everywhere we can possibly be. Because these events not only host these transient people that are, high net worth oftentimes, honestly, but also the locals go to these things too. So we are this winter just trying to have a presence, have some offerings, have some swag bags, etc., and be around with some signage and at these local activation events. We're like today we're doing snow polo. Snow polo is what it sounds like. It's people playing polo in the snow. We're there. We have a presence there. It's a local, very affluent event. We're giving out IVs and some shots with our nurses. We got to watch Prince Harry play polo yesterday. So
For real?
it's kind of yeah.
Well,
So it's kind of cool too. I mean, and that part's kind of nice. And so of course the nurses love going there and it's fun. But the real reason is because we just want to our brand, our signage, our offerings to be as present as possible everywhere. Because we want to mitigate that uncertainty of what we have here. Most people don't realize we do the blood work, we do this. We want to make sure they know at least the basics of what we do and how we're different than other centers in the area. A lot of different offerings. So it's one of those deals of a lot of complicated offerings, which is good with really expert people doing it. But how do you, in a really brief period, verbally or the website or through searching through Google, how do you translate that or communicate that we have all these offerings?
Because they're asking for a sauna or an IV
Yeah.
initially, right? So,
Yeah, and that's what
yeah.
our website looks like, which is true. But we do brain scans too, for example. No one knows this. And that's just marketing and advertising. And so I'd be lying if I said we had that figured out. And so our goal this winter is, again, just being present locally as much as possible with our offerings and just honestly hitting the pavement
So
and networking.
besides the local events, the
Yeah.
snow polo
Yeah.
and the other cool events that you guys do, how else do you spread the word or attempt to teach the public about all the vast array of offerings that you have?
Uh, right now, social media.
So to me,
So
okay.
we are seeing an uptick in people that are finding us on social. You have to kind of get traction there first.
Yeah,
I'm the worst person to ask how social media could be optimized. I have a social media manager. I have no idea how this stuff works. But I can talk about what we're doing that seems to be working.
yeah.
And
What's
so
working?
a big focus for us has been to highlight more of the offering. Three things: highlight more of the offerings, highlight more of the lifestyle, which I'll talk about, and highlight. This has been a big changer for us. Highlight in social, and on the website too, but mainly social, highlight the client experience. So it
Mm,
wasn't just this website or social of like, we have lymphatic massage. We have an IV. Did you know? That's great. But we have like this new approach with videography is to track people, have them walk in the door. They do a service. You get an idea what the room looks like, and then literally getting in the plunge and going to the sauna. You know, we hired some models to do all that. Literally the inner workings of what you would do in the room. Like you're in the shower, you walk over here, that kind of experience. You can put yourself in that experience. We weren't doing that very well. I think we're doing a good job now. I really like it. So that experience visually is more present on our social platforms. The lifestyle as well. I think we're doing a big push now, which I think is great. We have great athlete partners on our team or in our network. So we're getting content of them outside the studio that shows their lifestyle. They're skiing, they're doing the half pipe and competing, or they're doing a mountain bike race and they're going from there to recover here or whatever.
mm,
Or they're, the older weekend golfer that's playing some golf, then comes in, gets the IV, does the cold plunge, etc. And so you want to track their journey, if you will. So we have these like kind of mini stories, athletes or locals that we're kind of rolling out more now, again, with that lifestyle effect. And part of our brand is Aspen, right? I'd be lying if I said, no, Aspen doesn't matter. We just happen to be here. No, we're here for a reason. I mean, we do live here and we love it. But there's a cachet to that, and so as we expand our brand and expand our sites, we really want to lean into that. And we're
sure.
proud of that. Not only is Aspen, great and it's certainly exclusive, that's great, but it's also a lifestyle we like. It's a very active outdoor lifestyle. So trying to lean more into that, the lifestyle elements the look and feel and what the experiential elements of our center. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All of that sets the stage perfectly for what's ahead. So let's look forward a little bit. What are your top priorities for the next 6 to 12 months? And if
All the
everything goes right, what
Yeah.
does success look like?
Success looks like the expansion of our brand and expansion of our facilities. I mean, like many businesses are like this. Our original model, and we don't have, of course, an exit strategy is everyone talks about this, but we're not focused on that per se. Growth and scalability is obviously important. We're a business. And so we are at a stage now where optimizing all the things that I've been talking about, with social and marketing center is important, but we're now thinking about additional sites where that could fit in, what that would look like. We originally built this with a kind of unit economic model, if you will, where we have a brand identity here in Aspen, copy and paste in different sites and leverage that brand identity in Aspen and that exclusivity, if you will. And so we have some different sites in mind, but like we're now thinking about, site too. And there's so many lessons that we've learned building this one out. And oftentimes locals will say, if you can build something in Aspen, a business, you can build it anywhere for a ton of reasons that, that or I don't want to bore you with, but it's very difficult. It's expensive, but it's very difficult and timely to get things built out here, facilities wise. So we're now thinking about that. So success in a year would probably be significant progress, if not close to opening an additional site. That could either be a pop up or a partnership in a place like a Denver, that really understands the Aspen community, or a whole different location in a different state, like a Florida, for example. In an affluent area, but a more populated area, and then again leverage the brand identity and have our additional site there, because we can copy and paste a lot of things, and again we've learned a lot of lessons for
Sure.
sure.
That was going to be my next question. You've mentioned a lot of lessons. What would be one piece of advice or the biggest lesson learned you'd give to somebody starting out in this longevity or wellness industry?
Oh man, I have a 2-hour answer, but you want one. This really applies to any business, I think. And I'm trying to think of an interesting answer, but the thing that pops in my head is the people, the founders. If you're just starting, it's all about the people. Not only like-minded, shared ethos, shared mission, but the ability to do it, the expertise. Like I'm the scientific director, right? So like my ability in this space, my CV is certainly quite fitting for all these things. But my business partner has a background in accounting and payroll management. I couldn't do any of that stuff. And she has a fantastic eye. She's a creative as well. So a lot of the socials that we pair really well together, I think, in that regard. So that was a very important element. And so that's the first piece of advice. I mean, you kind of need different minds and different levels of expertise. But that's a generic answer. But yeah, I think in this space too, I would also really focus on the experience. So we a mistake we made, we put a lot of effort into the architect, whereas we could have put a more, when I say effort, I mean money, to be honest. We probably could have spent that on interior design, and it would have been a lot better, because that would have made the experience probably better. We got lucky that, again, my partner's a fantastic creative mind. I think our space looks beautiful, but that would have been money more well spent. So like the architecture itself, like the egress, ingress, whatever, that's negotiable. But that client experience, which is really just a look and feel of the final product, I think that was paramount, because they want a really nice setting for all this, and they like experts. So even if you're just partnering with a PhD or an MD, or they're on your advisory board, really, really advertise or market or highlight those individuals, because people love that credentialed expertise. They trust that more. And so you may know, you have an RN that knows everything about this stuff, and I'm sure you do, but just partner with someone. I'm on so many advisory boards, I've lost count. I mean, because we have friends and networks, I'm happy to do that. You can just have someone as an advisor. That adds credibility, and we've seen that a lot. People, whether it's fair or unfair, people really like that. The clients really expect that and like that. At our medical director, her training's phenomenal. We highlight me when we can, and
So, Sealy, for listeners who want to connect or learn more, where can they find you online?
basestatellongevity.com. Yeah. And
Well, Sealy, thanks so much for sharing your
yeah,
insights. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you today.
absolutely.
Thanks to
Thanks,
all my
Jennifer.
guests for listening today.